Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cincinnati, Ohio, where we have an exciting match here for you today from the NXL. Here we have in Division 5 Xball, Ill Intent against Filthy Few in their first sets of the day in the PM bracket on Friday. Additionally, in D5, we have a 10-minute time limit with a Mercy 3 point limit. Therefore, any team that is winning by 3 points will immediately be awarded the win. Moving into this one today, it's certainly a hot one, and it is certainly humid out there. So I think we're going to see a lot of bounces off the break, a lot of paint checks, and hopefully a lot of exciting action up the middle. You know, with this field and how it's played out so far in the AM brackets, I think we've seen the most successful teams utilize the middle and really start their push up there and then start to wrap from the outsides. I think that these snake beams up the middle are really going to add an interesting dimension to the whole gameplay and really going to allow people to essentially cross from one side to the other without being seen as they crawl down like a traditional snake player would. So, I think we might see a lot more smaller guys playing up the middle as opposed to the traditional larger guys that we see play up the gut. And one final thing just before we start, I just wanted to note the extremely favorable field conditions that we have here today at Joyce Park. I just want to compliment everyone out here at Joyce Park for having such nice and lush grass. This is certainly prime field to be playing on, especially for the divisional guys. Just want to compliment all those out here that work hard at Joyce Park. Want to give a shout out to all the refs and thank everyone for coming out here and helping out on this NXL event. All right, getting into it here. We're going to have Filthy Few here on the left in the baby blue jerseys and Ill Intent on the right in the black and red jerseys. Alrighty, looks like we're going to get this first point underway here. Looks like both teams breaking 5 wide heavy guns for Filthy. They're going to go ahead and shoot a guy off the break. Ill Intent managing to get into the snake, but they're going to have a minor penalty assessed on Ill Intent. That was on Chapman. Looks like he got hit in his hopper. That's going to go ahead and pull Harvey. Looks like we're going to see a 5-on-3 advantage for Filthy. Ill Intent managing to get up into that 50 brick. Looks like that is Chapman up in there. He's going to look to the inside and take a hit from Perkins. Perkins going to get that kill out in the D side for Filthy out of that Snake Rito, it looks like. Just 2 left alive for Ill Intent. That's Hambali and Woody over on the Snake side, and in that Snake Rito trying to stay alive here against the full court press for Filthy. Still having 5 bodies alive. Oh, looks like Perkins going to look to make his move here on the outside. Hambali shoots one up the gut, but Perkins going to make his move on the inside. He's going to shoot Hambali. He's going to take out 1. Does he get 2? There we go. He gets 2. That's going to be a 3-pack for Perkins to finish out the point. 4 alive, 4 Filthy. They're going to go ahead, move down the field, make sure the field is clear, and we're going to get a concession here from Ill Intent. Well, overall, not a bad point, although, it's hard to survive those early penalties. When you're playing 5-on-3 for Ill Intent, it's just hard to play that kind of a game. They shot 1 out of up the gut, and, then you're playing 4-on-2 and isolated to one side, and it was only a matter of time before Perkins wrapped that outside, and Perkins managed to go ahead and get that kill on Hambali and Woody. Looking into this next point, the score is 1 for Filthy Few and 0 for Ill Intent. Ill Intent going to be playing on the left side of your screen, Filthy Few on the right. What do we want to see out of this next point? Well, I think for both teams, off the break shooting is going to be key in trying to isolate people into the pocket. If I'm Ill Intent, I think I probably want to start sending people up the gut, probably 1 or 2 people to that 50 brick and potentially their 50 brick. Go ahead and remove their center player from the field. Hopefully get some penetration up there and ultimately change the course of this game. So let's see what both teams decide to do getting here into the second point. Oh, Ill Intent can have a player leave early. They're going to go ahead and get pulled on that. They're going to be down a player 4 on 5, but Filthy Few losing a player up the gut out of their home. Looks like that is Necht going to go ahead and take the walk. Also looks like Wilcox is going to go ahead and make a big move into the snake too. 4 on 4 action here between Ill Intent and Filthy Few. Mangrum going to make a move into that D2, but Wilcox going to go ahead and press into that snake Rito. But getting shot on the inside by Capuano. Wilcox going to go ahead and take the walk. Leaving it down now to 3 on 4. Ill Intent with 3 bodies. Filthy Few with 4 and losing another body for Ill Intent. This is really not looking good for Ill Intent here. They've got just 2 bodies isolated on the Dorito side as Filthy Few continues to wrap. Ill Intent losing another body. 1 body left for Ill Intent, stuck there in that Dorito 2 as Capuano for Filthy Few continues to press down and continues to push the issue. Applying cross-field pressure, going to get the kill and eventually the concession out of Ill Intent. Good play there out of Capuano. Way to press the issue from up the gut and continue down in through that snake beam and wrapping the field. Really couldn't have done that either without Mangrum's oversight there. Now, Ill Intent, hoping to get it back. Down 2, plenty of time left, 7:22 left on the clock. There's plenty of time for a comeback, plenty of time to score 3 more points and go ahead and take the win. Just a reminder, everyone, it is not race to 3, it is win by 3. It's mercy 3. So if I'm Filthy Few, I'm just going to go ahead, get to my bunkers and sit on my guns and cross it up. Start burning some clock, get some kills, and hopefully walk down the field and put another point on the board. Ill Intent, they've got plenty of time left, but they do have to come down the field, and this is a slower playing field. If I were them, I'd certainly play 2 up the gut at least, along with a few shooters. Looks like Ill Intent's going to be sending out pretty much the same line that they started with that first point, plus Wilcox from the last point. Wilcox is going to go ahead and get the spin here. But looks like he's taking a second in the pit. He needs a gun. He might be late getting on the box. Oh, looks like he might make it there in time. Let's see if Ill Intent can keep all 5 bodies alive off the break. And it looks like they are able to, keeping all 5 out wide with Wilcox managing to get out wide. But Filthy Few pressing the issue, getting 1 mirrored up in that brick and losing a guy out of the snake too. That's a big kill, but Handbally then gonna move into the snake 1 for Ill Intent. 5 on 4 advantage for Ill Intent. Gonna kill the guy out of the middle now. Wilcox with a great kill there, managing to kill the Filthy Few player out of that 50 brick. Gonna go ahead and then free up the rest of his team and have a 5 on 3 advantage. He's then gonna go ahead and make this big move, Wilcox, into the Dorito 2. Stay alive and continue to apply pressure. Handbally moving up into that snake Rito. Really applying the pressure cross field, but it looks like we're going to have a running ref. Never a good sign to come in and check out Woody. Here comes a minor penalty on Woody That's going to go ahead and pull out Hambali. There goes the Snake Rito in the entire right side of the field for Ill Intent. It looks like we have Chapman's going to be the furthest guy on that side. He's still at the home. So Ill Intent trying to hang on here. Now evened up the body counts, 3 apiece. But Wilcox going to go ahead and take a big bite here trying to get to the 50 wedge, but he's going to get absolutely diced up from cross field trying to make that move. That's going to leave this into a 2-on-2, and Chapman making the move into that can for Ill Intent, but he's going to get shot on that move. Going to take the walk, leaving just Woody alive, and then he's going to go ahead and die. So Ill Intent, no bodies left on the field, and Filthy Few with 2 bodies left. They're going to go ahead and slowly work their way down, and they're going to work to close this point out. Yeah, so, you know, had the high body advantage there for Ill Intent, and, you know, just penalties and starting early off the box, really hard to get any kind of momentum going with being down a body or 2 off the rip each time. And let's talk about what made Filthy Few successful in this match. You know, I really think it was the push up the gut that helped them set up those outside wraps and those outside attackers to then get kills on the pocket of Ill Intent. You know, I think Ill Intent failed to get that uphill penetration in those wraps on the outside that they would have needed. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Point approved. Filthy Few officially takes the win 3-0 against Ill Intent with 4:20 remaining on the clock. You know, Filthy Few, they just kept being able to play up on bodies. You know, they played up on bodies, they got wide, they got that penetration that they were looking for up in the middle, and Ill Intent just unfortunately was not able to answer that offense from Filthy Few.